Hello and welcome to another episode. This is a series where we get you excited about heading back into New South Wales and taking some photos. Today on the show we're going underwater with Tom Parr. Tom's an underwater photographer who's been shooting all over New South Wales for years now. He knows all the little hot spots and he's got some amazing photography. So Tom, why don't we get into it?
Yeah, Mitch, stoked to be here and I guess share the underwater world with a bunch of people who might not see it as much as I do, but yeah, stoked to get rolling.
How did you first get into underwater photography and what part did New South Wales play in that?
I got certified as a scuba diver at about age 14. And ever since then, I sort of fell in love with the ocean, fell in love with scuba diving. I bought myself a GoPro and just started, waving around underwater, trying to, I guess, film cool things that I thought were cool, some of the cool animals in New South Wales. And that eventually grew where I ended up buying quite a substantial camera for a 16 or 17-year-old. And I started practicing and getting used to that. And then those photos started growing into basically what today I am a full-time underwater photographer.
What is it that you love about underwater photography?
One of the main kicks I get out of it is showing people that things like this guy here, I've lost my hand, things like this guy here actually exist. The ocean's full of these super weird and wacky animals that do ridiculous things. And a lot of these real weird and wacky animals are in places like Sydney. Up like the more tropical areas in New South Wales, you get the turtles and, the anemone fish and what you kind of expect from the ocean, from what Finding Nemo's taught people, basically. But around Sydney, we don't have that tropical water. We have these like really cool, wacky animals that most people have no idea are even down there.
Yeah, talking about the accessibility. Why don't we start with this photo here, where it's shot and what's in it?
Yeah, sure. So this is a weedy sea dragon shot down at Kurnell, so literally just outside Sydney, down in the national park. And these guys are super, super rare. They're native to Australia, and you won't find them anywhere else in the world other than the southern Australian state. So having this just outside a major city is very, very cool. This sea dragon, or the sea dragon population down in Kurnell, is actually one of the largest populations in the world. It's one of the few places anyone can see these animals. They do have a tendency to come up to divers a little closer, check you out, see what's going on before sort of retreating back into the weeds.
Can you give us some tips on how to take a great photo underwater?
Absolutely. So taking a photo underwater is surprisingly different to taking a photo above the water. Above the water, you have different lenses you can choose to frame your shot, all that sort of stuff. Underwater, though, your only options are basically ultra wide angle, almost fisheye. Many photographers actually use the fisheye, or super, super macro. Underwater, there's a lot of sediment and things that will rush past your lens. And all that sediment just reduces visibility, adds this sort of like noisy, grainy, awful backscattery look to your photos or your footage. So having that ultra wide angle lens and getting super close reduces that airspace between the subject and your camera, basically. One of the hardest parts is actually getting the animal to trust you and working with the animal to approach it, to get it comfortable with you being there before it will engage with you and before you're close enough to actually get one of these shots. So working with the ocean and the animal itself is one of the hardest things to, I guess, get your head around before taking the shot. It's very different to something like bird photography where you are so far away that the animal doesn't really care about you.
Yeah, and also one thing we should mention is that you can't touch the animals under the water, can you?
No, absolutely. So while it's for photography important to get close and comfortable with the animal, you absolutely can't touch anything or can't get in their personal space and annoy them or harass them or anything like that. That's a huge, huge no-no in the diving world.
All right, let's go to your next photo, and I'm going to keep in Sydney. This is at Shelly Beach, right?
Yeah. So this is shot down in Cabbage Tree Bay, just right next to Manly Beach. And this is a giant cuttlefish, and kind of exactly like the weedy sea dragon, these are native to Australia, which is super, super cool, again, to have inside Sydney.
Is this photo taken at night?
It's actually taken at about 4:30 a.m. So I'm not sure if that's night or sunrise. But what we got there up the top of the photo is actually first light coming through, which is very cool. We jumped in And within about 5 minutes, we ran into one of these guys just in the shallows, which is why you can see it's super close to the surface as well. And we've got that first light sort of breaking through the top there. This is literally just a shore dive. So you stroll in off the beach, and it doesn't, on the left-hand side, it doesn't get more than like 4 or 5 meters deep. So it's super nice for swimmers, snorkelers and free divers to sort of cruise around on the surface there, be able to see the bottom. We actually did a film shoot here with Destination New South Wales in January or February. And all of that was snorkeling. So everything we shot was within that first like 4 meters of the ocean. So there's all these giant cuttlefish. There's quite often like large schools of fish and eagle rays and things like that that cruise around. The grouper are super, super friendly to swimmers and free divers as well.
All right, let's move a little bit further up the coast and onto your third photo. You probably need a little bit more screen space for this guy.
I do. This is shot in Byron Bay, Julian Rocks, just out of Byron Bay. And this is about 100 to 150-year-old loggerhead turtle. Absolutely, it's as big as he looks, basically.
So how did he come to having a little nibble of your camera?
So we sort of saw this guy right at the end of the dive, just cruising around, and he was on a mission. He was heading for something. And anyways, as he got closer, he sort of saw something in the camera, a reflection or something in the dome, and he started poking and prodding and wanted to sort of check out what was going on, like what was the mirrored image he saw. Yeah, luckily managed to hit that shutter button right at the peak time here, but he didn't actually nibble. He was just very ultra inquisitive as to what was going on in the front of that lens.
I mean, that must be one of the most amazing things about underwater photography, is getting to experience this foreign world.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's not just about seeing the turtle, I think. I mean, I've seen a lot of turtles and I still love seeing a turtle, but the second you get a little bit of interaction with the animal, or the second they show something different, they pay attention to you, or they want to, they act differently towards you, almost they're inquisitive. That's my favorite part, being in their world and having them sort of learn something about you or try and check you out for something. So yeah, absolutely.
Julian Rocks, Byron Bay. Why is this location so important to you?
Yeah, so this was actually one of the first holiday dive spots I got to see up on the New South Wales coast, and it's one of these spots that every January or February, trying to dive with the turtles and also the leopard sharks as well, because they migrate to Julian Rocks in the summer period for the warmer water, and being able to swim with them is probably my favorite underwater experience in New South Wales. So yeah.
What's so special about the leopard sharks?
I mean, I guess one of the coolest parts is it's not just one leopard shark you get to swim with. They flock there in the hundreds. So it's kind of like swimming through a school of fish, except each one of those fish is like 2 meters long. And they're super like vibrant yellow spot. They look absolutely beautiful.
Also, leopard sharks don't have any teeth, correct?
No teeth. They're gummy mouth sharks. They eat fish about that big. So there's literally nothing to worry about.
All right, let's go to your next photo, a location that's not too far from Julian Rocks, Tweed Heads.
This is one of New South Wales's turtle hotspots, and the operators, Water Sport Guru and Kira Dive, actually offer this experience. We jumped in, and within the first like 2 minutes of this dive or snorkel, we had like 30 turtles, just completely surrounded by all of these turtles.
All right, so you mentioned this is a snorkel and not a scuba dive, so that would mean that you don't need any prior training, right?
I mean, you can scuba dive, of course, but no, this is predominantly a snorkel. So if you did just want to see turtles, which is the main highlight here, it's literally you jump in the water with no experience. They have snorkel guides, even if you're a poor swimmer or whatnot. They have guides and buoys and stuff in the water to help you around the turtles, basically, and the turtles just cruise around under you. Super, super cool. But there is like a drop off if you did want to get a bit deeper and dive it as well.
What is it that you love about northern New South Wales and diving in the ocean up there?
The water is super, super warm, which is always a huge plus, summer or winter. You don't really need a wetsuit, or even just like a thin one's totally fine up there. But it also gets this subtropical sort of nutrient. So it gets a lot of these turtles and a lot of anemone fish or Nemo. And a lot of those tropical fish you'd find on coral reefs and that sort of thing, they are attracted to this area as well. And seeing that, in your own backyard is very, very cool.
With restrictions now being eased on travel, what do you hope that people can take away from this interview?
I mean, the wildlife hasn't moved. It's all still there. So what I would be doing, what I am doing right now, is making a list of the places that I want to go. The things that I want to see. Number one on my list is back at Julian Rocks at Byron Bay. Summer's coming, and so are the leopard sharks. And it's been a while, so I want to head back up there. The second site is actually just south of Sydney down in Wollongong, and there's one of New South Wales's largest seal colonies on Martin Island, and diving with seals is awesome fun. They're so playful, and if you want interaction, that's probably your number one go-to. The third one is somewhere I've never actually dove before. It's in out of Coffs Harbour, the Solitary Islands, but it's listed as one of the largest Nemo or anemone fish dense populations in Australia, which is huge. So I want to check that out, and apparently it's absolutely gorgeous. So yeah, those are my top three.
Yeah, I reckon a lot of people will be jumping on that one. Tom, thanks for joining me today. It's been a pleasure. We've got a lot of great information out of you, and I hope people have found it really insightful.
Not a problem. Thank you for having me. And you definitely need to get underwater. Check out what we've got, and it will not disappoint you. If you haven't learned, time to learn.